You've heard the expression, set it and forget it. Well, we're here to tell you the real story. I'm Adam Hamalian,
And I'm Sherry Hutchens.
and we are two broker associates looking to elevate the professionalism of real estate. This is our coaching edition podcast where we focus both on professionalism and the passion of real estate so that you might have sustained profitability over a long career. All right, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
This episode, we are going to be talking about your digital curb appeal. So in real estate, we talk about curb appeal. Like, what is somebody's first impression when they pull up to a house? Oftentimes, opinions are formed just as soon as they pull up, and it sets the tone for the whole viewing. So we pay attention to things like the door color and house numbers, and is the landscaping done? Is there, a junker car in the driveway? Or in one listing we had, are there suspected drug dealers living next door, which affected the curb appeal of our property? But that's a whole nother podcast.
That is a whole nother podcast. I think highly suspected.
Yeah, highly suspected. Yeah,
Yeah.
the
We
way that
never,
the parade of people that pulled up and were there for about 45 seconds and left was really suspicious.
uh-huh. Yes, we disclosed it,
We did, of
but
course.
buyers didn't seem to care. So
No, maybe they like the convenience. Who knows?
just instead of borrowing a cup of sugar from their neighbor,
Maybe we should have marketed that.
next time.
Yeah, all right. We're pretty far afield. All right. So curb appeal of houses.
Yes.
Uh, and so we're playing off that to talk about digital curb appeal for us as an agent,
Yes.
because really, in as a real estate agent, you think you're selling houses, but really, ultimately, you are the product. You are trying to sell you as a service provider, and why somebody should use you or use anybody.
Yeah.
And so you got to get noticed before you get an opportunity to share why you and why you're a good agent and whatever else. So we're going to talk about branding.
Yes. So a couple years ago, this is before quite a few years ago, before you and I were partners, I was out showing houses with a couple, and we would pull up in front of a house, and before I even had the car turned off, they would say, "Nope, next one." They'd look at the house and they wouldn't even get out of the car to go inside to look at it. And I think the goal of this podcast is to make sure that when they don't go, oh, next one. They want to stop and learn more about that agent, right? So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
how do we do that?
well, that's what we're going to talk about today. So two things right off the bat, things that you can't control, but you can control how they're presented to people, is your name and your face. And that obviously we're not advocating that you change your name or your face. You are who you are, and you should be proud of it. But how people see your name and how people see your face is crucial. So let's start with the headshots.
Okay.
All right. We're going to talk about headshots. We just cut a whole segment out. So if it seemed like a rough cut, it's because I used an expression I wasn't sure of its origin and decided it wasn't a I wasn't didn't want to take the chance. So we're going to talk about not to go inexpensive on your headshot. I mean, you don't have to do a $500 headshot, but you need professional headshots, not just something with your
Mhm.
iPhone. And there's a lot of variety and creativity that you can do within it. Sherry and I tend to lean towards the more traditional, um, you know, half bust
Headshot.
up headshot straight on.
Yep.
But there are, I think, lots of professional alternatives, particularly for the real estate space. There's one major brokerage that does emphasizes lifestyle type photos. So an agent in an open doorway, which has the connotation of inviting you in.
Mhm.
So full body rather than just your face. Sherry, do you have thoughts about that?
I think that they look absolutely gorgeous, but they're not very functional because if you want to put something on your business card, you're going to have to crop it to just a head and shoulder shot anyway. If you look great standing in a doorway, go for it.
Yeah.
I guess I don't have an opinion on it. This is coming from someone who hates to have their picture taken anyway. So
You're not the only one. I think it's very common.
yeah.
I think that both from kind of self-image and self-modesty, and I want to be hired for my knowledge, not for my looks. All
Mhm.
sorts of reasons why headshots are feel awkward. The other
Yeah.
thing I'm seeing agents do, and I think the jury is out on it, is using AI
Hmm.
to enhance an otherwise acceptable photo. But I saw an agent in our brokerage do it, and the picture looked amazing, but she looked about 30 years younger than she actually is. And I, we all want to look younger. So it's
Yeah.
not the comment here isn't to be critical of wanting to look younger. But
Well,
it's
we
got
all want to
to,
look younger and better and, all of that. But I had somebody walk into an open house once and I handed them a flyer and they looked at my picture and looked at me and looked at the picture and went, "Is this you?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, note to self, time to get a new headshot." So,
yeah.
and same with AI, you need to look like yourself.
The whole point here is that it is you. And actually, my wife, when I went into real estate, she wasn't. There's things about it that she didn't love because she works in the appraisal industry, and so she meets agents all the time. But she said the one thing that she, asked of me was that I renew my headshot at least as often as I renew my real estate license, so that when I'm 70, I don't look like I did when I was in 40. And there's multiple reasons for that. One is um, just a contemporary photo of you is helpful so that when somebody meets you, oh yeah, you're the same person. But two, you don't want a Roger Moore 80s haircut in 2020. I mean, like you look out of date and like, well, if you can't update your head photo, how are you going to market my house in what the current contemporary market is? Are you going to like be putting shag carpet in? Because you certainly seem to wear that toupee really well. Actually, I don't know if Roger Moore wears a toupee. I shouldn't say that.
Well, I don't know. I think you're kind of ageless, Adam. You look the same, now as you did when I met you, 10 years ago. So it's different for men, though. You have a certain haircut and a blue shirt in your case, maybe a white shirt.
It's
And
my
women,
branding.
it is your branding. It's your agent curb appeal. But for women, I mean, we change our hairdos, we change clothes, hairstyles, how we put our makeup on. It's like everything in this world. It's just different.
Yeah. Well,
So,
it's interesting because when you first met me, I had not started to go gray around my temples yet. And I was like desperate to make that happen because people thought I was younger than I was. And for those of you that are new agents, this is just a reality you're going to have to live with is that there is a bias towards an older, more experienced agent than new agents. And you should not, airbrush your hair to be gray prematurely. Um, but it is an astigmatism that you are going to have to display your knowledge even more so when you're a younger person. And so there's, I think, an irony, particularly for men. You point out the differences for women, of course, there that to be a certain age, old enough to, are you old enough to do this kind of thing? Um,
exactly.
well, and then I think there was a while, I mean, you and I are only about 10 years difference, but there was a while that people were wondering whether I was your son. They were asking, how are we related? I'm like, no, no, we're
Well, that was more because of your last name. They were mixing you up with an agent in Martinez who
yeah,
has a similar, very narrowly similar last
yeah,
name, and they thought I was her and you were my son. It's like, oh, come on,
yeah,
please,
yeah.
really.
I mean, nobody was offensive. It just kind of filling in
No.
the blanks, what we all do. So
Yes,
yeah,
yes, I
you want
had
to
you when I was 10.
Yeah, exactly. So all right, all this back to you should get a professional headshot.
Yep,
You want people to be able to see your face so that when they see you someplace else at an open house, at the grocery store,
yep,
wherever else, when you buy that billboard,
yep,
that they see oh yeah, I know who that is. And um, and then update it periodically.
yep.
And we
And
think you
don't
should
overly retouch it.
don't overly retouch it. It's really got to look like you. I think that the more that you can own who you are, the easier this business is. The more that we try to be somebody we're not, either trying to look younger or older or pretend that you have experience that you don't have, it comes across as inauthentic and it's a barrier to making connections with clients.
Yep, agree.
Uh,
All right, so you've got your headshot. What's next?
Okay, let's talk about our names. We're definitely not advocating anybody change their name. Um, Although some of you might, because there might be. for instance, a very common name, and you might not be the only one, even in your market, with that name. Now, Sherry and
Yeah.
I both have unique names. I might be the only Adam Hamalian in the United States and maybe in the world. Like if you Google me, go to
Wow.
LinkedIn, I am the only one that shows up. There are a few other Sherry Hutchens, but there's a agent in
Yeah.
our office who lives in Lafayette, has lived here for I think 40 years. I don't know how long, and she's not even the only woman in Lafayette with that same name. So,
Right.
um, if she had a maiden name that she wanted to add to her name to make it distinctive, that can be
Mhm.
helpful. Or vice versa, she's been using a maiden name and now she's married, and that would make her name more unique. You might consider that. I'm not suggesting you make a name up. I'm just saying if you have a choice between a variety of usages, that you would pick one that's distinctive,
Yeah.
usage that's distinctive.
Yep.
We met with it's interesting because we met with a seller recently who is a retired agent, actually a broker, and
Yes.
we discovered that she had a whole different name as part of a different career.
Yes, we literally stood outside of the house waiting for her to show up because the car in the driveway had a name on it that was not her name. And we were like 10, 11, 12 minutes. We were long past the time we were supposed to be there. And finally, we decided to go up and knock on the door and see if, maybe we missed something. And sure enough, she retired and changed her first name to her real first name. She'd been going by her middle name for her entire career.
yeah. Yeah. And
Kind of
we only knew
embarrassing.
her by her real estate name, not her real name.
Yeah.
Actually, did you know that she was the listing agent for my house, that the where I live now?
Oh, what a coincidence. That's
25 years
amazing.
ago, she was the listing agent. She was the second listing agent because the first one, anyway, never mind. That's a whole other story.
Oh,
She's a
that's
good
funny.
agent, a broker's license.
Yep.
All right. So, Sherry, what do we do with their name? So we've decided on her name. What are a couple ways that we use our name particularly?
All right. So Adam loves the term, you are the product. And so you need to get you, the product, out there. Let's start with a vanity email address. Everybody, when you start with a brokerage, you get your own email address, Sherry at nameofbrokerage.com. And that's all fine and good. It's perfectly usable. But we believe if you're going to have you as the product, that you should have sherryhutchens.com or adamhamalian.com and an email address to go with that.
So it's kind of the Carly Simon rule, is what you're telling me. You're so vain, you probably think this email is about you.
Took me a minute. I was like, Carly Simon. Wait,
Yeah, it's the
you
Carly
real
Simon
you
rule.
got a real estate license?
Maybe she does. You're so
Yeah,
vain.
you're so vain. Yes, vanity email address. Um,
Well, and there's a couple of reasons I think why you want a vanity email and not just your brokerage. Because the reality, very, very few, I wonder what the stat is, real estate agents start a career and end a career with the same brokerage. So the likelihood of your brokerage being sold or you switching
mhm,
for all sorts of, I'll say, healthy reasons and sometimes unhealthy reasons. You want your contacts, your sphere to follow you. But if you've got Adam at brokerage.com and you leave brokerage and everybody's been finding you at that email, if somebody emails me after I leave and to Adam at brokerage, the brokerage gets those emails. I don't get them. And so I'll never know. And so getting people to
right.
change their email history is just really difficult. So if you start with Adam at Hamalian.com or Sherry at sherryhutchens.com, then no matter what you're doing, your sphere will follow you. But that's not the only reason. Why else might you, not just that they'll follow you, but why else would you want to use your name?
Well, I worked at Empire Realty for a few years and had Sherry at empirerealty.com. They went out of business.
Yeah, so there's nobody even to steal the
Those
client
emails
from you.
are right. There's emails are going nowhere. So, I
Yeah.
mean, luckily I had another email address that I used in addition to that. So I wasn't missing any emails. Yeah, I don't know. Other reasons?
So when you're using you should use your vanity email for absolutely everything you do. You
Mhm.
should no longer use, you know, a Hamalian at gmail.com or whatever your free account is. You should use your vanity for all interactions with everybody because it's a passive way to remind your friends and family and anybody else you're interacting with that you're in real estate. And before you think that it's all salesy, there's nothing in the body of the email that is salesy. You're just doing regular communication.
Yeah.
But when the email comes in, it has Hamalian Properties or whatever your email address is. They see that and they passively are taking in, oh yeah, he's a real estate agent. We'll
Yeah.
talk about signatures in a little bit later, but just having that as your email address is a way of passive marketing. And then also you'll have a corresponding web address that matches that so
Right.
that somebody can automatically just type in HamalianProperties.com and it takes me even to being redirected to the brokerage-based email or website. So
Right.
and then you can change where that points if you change companies. You don't have to make the website yourself. You're
Mhm.
just taking that address and when people type it in, sending them to where you want it to go.
Yes, a good example of that is you and I share a website called HutchensHamalian.com, but we each have our own website, SherryHutchens.com, AdamHamalian.com, and they are pointed towards the Hutchens Hamalian. So if somebody puts in, it only knows me, doesn't know you, puts in SherryHutchens.com, it takes them where they need to be no matter what. So if your brokerage isn't doing that for you, you should ask them to do that for you.
Yeah. So there's a little crossover here where there's some more flexibility and taking that name over to socials.
Mhm.
So you should be consistent on LinkedIn with whatever you're using.
Mhm.
But when you get to Facebook and Insta and TikTok, you can create a profile name, and sometimes your profile name may or may not be available to you.
Mhm.
And actually, your vanity email might not be available to you if you have a real common name. So you've got to be creative. We didn't actually talk about that. Let's go back and talk about the email creativity that's required if you have a common name.
Mhm.
Um, One of the things, if you can't just do your name, is to add to it some way a real estate specific word.
Mhm.
So Adam, so mine actually is Hamalian Properties. I could have done Adam at adamhamalian.com. And then sometimes I lament not doing that. But I chose Hamalian Properties because when I first established it, I was operating heavily in the property management
Mhm.
sphere in addition to sales. And so I wanted that to wanted that to relate. But there's, homesbyadam.com
Mhm.
or um, something like buy,
Sherry Hutchens
sell,
Real Estate, something like that.
yeah, or Adam at buy, stage, sell, or
Mhm.
something like that that connotates real estate is helpful. The reality is, and I think you've had experience with this, when people see vanity emails, they kind of assume that we're real estate agents.
Yeah, I called, made a doctor's appointment a couple of weeks ago, and they asked me for my email address. And I said, Sherry at SherryHutchens.com. And she said, oh, you're a realtor. It's like, I guess it's getting to be a thing,
Yeah.
people know. So that's a good thing.
I see some artists using it, when they just, whether it's a painter or a photographer or a sculptor. So it does bleed over in a few others, but
Singers, actors.
but I think that it's primarily real estate agents
Yeah.
command the sphere.
Yeah.
All right, so jumping back over to socials,
Yes.
it's best if you can have something that coordinates with your domain name that you're using in your email website, but it's not necessary. And there can be some flexibility in how you present yourselves on those markets, on those platforms, and you should pick something that's authentic to who you are. The key thing about all socials, and we're not really going to talk about socials in general here, is that it's got to be authentic. So picking a name, your name or a portion of your name. And of course, depending upon how you're using it, you may actually want a layer of privacy where somebody doesn't see your last name.
Mhm.
But that is, we'll and we'll address social media on on another podcast altogether. Right now, just thinking about your name, people identifying you in your market.
So when I picked an Instagram name, I never imagined that I was going to be using Instagram for real estate.
Oh,
And
interesting.
I mean, it was kind of before it was a thing, and Sherry Hutchens was already taken. I didn't want to have Sherry Hutchens 2, 3, 4, whatever. And I was going through a Jersey Boys phase. Remember the musical Jersey
Yeah,
Boys?
yeah.
And so I picked Sherry Baby 55, and it was kind of an alluding to Jersey Boys, that
Yeah,
song, the
kind of
song.
a 50s bebop sound.
Uh-huh, yeah. And anyway, I still have Sherry Baby 55.
All right.
It says nothing about real estate, but it doesn't matter. My clients know how to find me.
All right. So are you going to sing Sherry Baby for me?
No, I had spent my high school years having people sing that to me as I walked down the hall, so
Uh,
I'm
I
not
I
gonna.
I'd try it, but I don't think even my falsetto could get that high.
Funny, funny,
Uh,
funny.
just my
Yeah.
got to stick with my real setto. I know that's not the word. Don't nobody spam me on that. I know there's not a falsetto. It's not. That's not the
A
etymology.
falsetto, a real setto.
Yeah,
That's clever. That is very clever.
yeah. Um.
All right. Anyway, socials. Are we
All
done
right.
with socials, or are we going to talk about social some more?
No, let's go back to logos for a sec. We kind of skipped
Okay.
over that
Yes.
as an image. Um, do you think that agents need to have a logo, an individual logo as opposed to their brokerage?
I don't think they have to have one. I think it's nice to have one for the same reasons that we talked about. If you, um, change brokerages, you can take your identity with you. You don't have to start from scratch. Or like you and I are broker associates, we don't have to work for another broker. We could have our own company, in which case we would need a logo. So I think they're fun to have. I think it's one of the hardest things to do is to come up with a logo that works. Most agents don't have an advertising or marketing and certainly not a design background. And so they don't understand how to use them. And I'll go driving past a corner on a Saturday afternoon and there's a bunch of real estate signs out pointing to open houses. And the number of logos that I can identify as I'm even not even driving by, maybe sitting at the stoplight, are pretty small because they are designed. When I worked in advertising, there was a term called advertising to yourself.
Yep.
And that was when you did something that you really liked, but it didn't make any sense for what the purpose was. And I think somebody who thinks, oh, I'm going to intertwine my initials in this beautiful script and have a daisy coming out of the top of it. That does not say real estate and it's not readable on a sign, people.
Yep.
I have opinions.
Well, I mean, it's even, I think, worse in the sense it's not even, it might make sense if it was a strong enough logo or used enough that if people could just see it, they would associate it. But it's not
Yeah.
even at that level. So usually when we're meeting with individual agents, we'll do a little kind of exercise to have them think about logos. And if I was to say, name an athletic shoe company,
Mhm.
they would say Nike.
Nike,
Yeah. Or if I was to say name a soda company, they're gonna
Coke.
probably say Coke. Some might say Pepsi.
Yep.
Um, and obviously those are in many ways not a fair comparison to individual real estate agents, but those are massive brands that I mean, Coke has their script name in their logo, but it's the wave and the way it's written that we all have come to get associated with it. But Nike is just that swoosh. There's
Yep.
no words or anything. That logo, everybody knows what it is.
Yep.
I mean, partly because they spend billions of dollars to make sure we know what it
Yeah.
is.
That's right.
But the point is that a logo, that's part of the function of the logo, is that when they see it, there can be an identity between that image and you, the product, and what you do and how you're doing it and whatever else, all those connotations. So how you use that logo is going to be important. And having it be immediately recognizable is harder to do if it's not a image that your brain can immediately get around.
Yeah. Yep.
We have a very boring logo.
I
We're
think it's classic. You think it's boring.
Yeah, when I say it's boring, that's a brag.
That's a good thing.
That's not a complaint. It's a
Okay.
brag.
All right.
So I think it's in our image for the podcast as I'm sitting here right now. I think that we have it there.
I think so.
If not, we've made a mistake. But it basically is our names, our last names. Common usage of the H, and it's
Yep.
Hutchens on top and Hamalian below it.
Yep.
A gray background with two tones of blue, one that we refer to as ash blue, a particular hue that we picked, and
Hmm.
then the darker blue, which matches our broker's common usage of a color, so that
Yep.
when we're doing co-branding, we match and coordinate with it. So nothing. There's not an image of a house. There's not an image of a flower. There's not, and the letters are sans serif, simple script that are fairly easy to read. We used to have a serif font. Were we using what was the font we were using? Do you
We were
remember?
using
Can't
Baby
remember.
Times New Roman.
Yeah, maybe it was. I thought maybe
It
we
was a
picked
very
this.
classic
Yeah,
serif font.
and then we've recently moved it to. Is it Montserrat or another sans serif
Either
font?
Termina or Montserrat. You'd think I would know, but I don't know.
Yeah, we belabored that for a long time. For a week or more, we had these samples on our floor,
Yeah.
to kind of like figured out which one we liked. But the point is that it's instantaneously readable.
Well, you
And
forgot something. You mentioned Hutchens Hamalian. You forgot the rest of it.
oh, that's right. So and then in a smaller script below our names, it says properties group.
So
So
it says real estate.
yeah, so it's
It
got
indicates real estate.
yeah, but the properties group is diminished compared to the size of our names. That
Right.
people see Hutchins Hamalian,
Right.
and they immediately identify with that. So when
Because
you're
we are the product.
because we are the product, and so it's readable and it's readable at distance. I
Mhm.
think you have a rule about this, right? For those of you to forget, we don't fully give our resume every time. Sherry actually used to work in advertising, both on a production side and on a sales side, and so her background pre-real estate is all over this stuff. So she's really the expert. So why don't you tell about kind of there was a rule about size and readability, right?
So I'm not a designer by any means. I was a technical person. I called on advertising agencies and corporations and design firms and helped them turn their visions into printable film that could be ink on paper. One of the things I did for Bank of America was I produced those large outdoor boards that you see as you're driving down the freeway, or especially as you're coming onto and off of the Bay Bridge in and out of San Francisco. So these big outdoor boards, we didn't produce them at that size. We produced them at a smaller size, but we had to make sure that everything was readable. And so we'd put them up in the light box and then we would take 20 paces back. I called it the 20-foot rule. I don't know if it was really 20 feet. And we would look at it. And from that distance, we could see whether or not that was going to be a readable board when it was enlarged to its full size.
And do you have a corollary for signs, open house signs when you're driving down the street? Something similar?
I do. So, you and I both, when we got the layouts for our outdoor boards and our yard signs, is we took the 20-foot step back and took a look at it from a distance so that when, you heard me say a little earlier, when I'm sitting at a stoplight, I want to be able to read what's on that open house sign. Or as I'm driving past a house, I want to be able to read what is on that yard sign. I drove past a yard sign in my neighborhood the other day. I'm going to stop and take a picture next time because it had a picture of the agent. It had for sale. Duh. We know that house is for sale if there's a sign in the yard, and a broker logo and a phone number, and it did not have the agent's name.
Oh my, yeah.
So nobody stood back and looked at that and said, I wonder if that's ready to go to print.
Uh,
Obviously it wasn't, but they printed it anyway.
yeah. Well, agents are notoriously thinking that they know everything about their own business,
Yeah.
which you're responsible for it, so you get to make the decision. We're trying to give you some good advice about when you make your decisions.
Yeah, they get too close to it. They forget to ask other people what they think or stand back and take a look at it with a critical eye.
Yeah. So the the size of real estate signs and even the A-frames for open house days are often regulated by local municipalities about how big that can be.
Yep.
And typically it's about 2 by 2. Some are various sizes on that, but about 24 inches by 24 inches. And so
Mhm.
that's not much real estate to communicate a lot of information.
Right.
We're required to have your broker name and DRE number, our names and DRE numbers. Actually, not required to have our names, but your broker's name and DRE. And then now you're going to figure out you're going to get your names on there. You're going to get a phone number on there, maybe to reach you. Other possibilities, I think you're going to put on that sign are maybe a QR code so somebody could just scan it and go straight to your website or get your
Yeah.
contact info.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see that more. And so your observation of why take up prime real estate with for sale on one hand, you're like, of the sign doesn't say it's for sale. How do I know? It's a cultural context. People are not confused by it.
Right.
And if you need to, you can add by putting a rider on a 6x2 that says for sale or for lease if that's the alternative.
Yeah.
How do you feel about brokers or not brokers, agents putting their faces on their signs? I'm not sure that there's a hard rule on this, but what do you feel about that?
Um, I think, well, I guess I haven't really thought about it before because it's so common. Ever since I got in the business, I've always had a picture on my business card and on signs and on everything else.
You've
Um,
had your picture on your signs? You've had the logo.
yeah,
I'm talking about headshots.
before we were partners, I had a headshot on my signs.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't think
Yep.
I've ever seen those.
Oh, yes, I had them. We no longer use those. We have our logo on instead.
Yeah.
But I don't know of any other industry that has pictures on their business cards. I can't think of anything.
Yeah. I, so we were advocating for headshots earlier, and I still do. I had a acquaintance who I don't know that well, but knows me enough to know that I was surprised that he would have thought this would have been my value. But he asked me if real estate agents put their headshots on their signs as a way of virtue signaling.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
and I and it was an interesting question. So the quick answer is I've never thought about that. The closest I've like, I want you to know me. This is the only face I have. It's the one I've been born with. Um, it's who I am.
Yeah.
And so if I'm the product, this is who I'm advertising. And the implication that maybe people may or may not work with me because of my gender, age, race,
Ethnicity.
ethnicity. I mean, those would in the context of buying and selling a house would be fair housing violations and tremendously egregious.
Yeah.
But for a consumer, I don't know how to control what a consumer thinks when they see me. It's an interesting thought process. I haven't fully processed it, but again, this is the only face I have. Sorry, everybody.
It's hard to control what other people think. They're going to think what they think. I mean, I had a client one time who was an old World War II vet who would not drive in my car with me because it was a Japanese made car.
Oh, interesting.
Would not get in the car and reminded me every time he saw me of that. I couldn't control that. I'm sorry. He had, of whatever stuff he carries with him,
Yeah.
there's nothing I can do to avoid that.
Yeah. Um, all right, let's twist it back to real estate again.
Yes.
So
Bios. How about bios?
all right. So bios, yeah, you are the product. You got to describe yourself.
Yeah.
Um, the primary places where you're going to think about your bios are going to be on your website,
Mm.
uh, somewhat on your socials. But then don't forget there are realtor spaces that are free on realtor.com and Zillow and a few other places like that where you'd want to update
Redfin,
it.
Home Light, lots of them. Your
Yeah.
CAR, NAR, CCAR.
Yeah. And if you've got a Yelp page or Google Business, Google Business is a whole conversation on its own, but you should definitely be updating information there.
Mhm.
Uh, how would you describe? Is it one bio across all platforms, or what are some of the things you might tailor if you're going to tailor it from site to site?
Mine are not tailored. Mine are one bio and they're the same from site to site to site.
All
Tells
right.
a little bit about me, what my background is, why I like real estate, how I take care of customers, and what I like to do when I'm not working. Pretty simple.
Yeah.
I think it's probably too long. I think a lot of them are too long. But yeah. How about yours?
The too long didn't read is very real. I tried to tailor mine from site to site.
Mhm. Oh, I didn't know
I
that.
Yeah, I feel that the website and LinkedIn are probably the two that are the closest to being the same.
Hmm.
Although I have in my LinkedIn some, my past work history, so I reference some of that maybe a little bit more than I have to go back and look and see what I've actually done.
Hmm.
Um, on socials, it's much more truncated. Like there might be three paragraphs at LinkedIn. There's going to be one paragraph on Facebook and Insta and TikTok, um, because people aren't going to read that deep. And then also you could put a link in to go to the website. So if people really want to read more about you, I think there's also just one layer of first impressions. If people are trolling you on social, that they're not getting all of you. They've got to do a little bit more research. Now, as real estate agents, we're out there all over the place, all these websites, so it's not that hard. But at least they got to click out of that app to go find more information.
So are you saying like an elevator speech instead of a bio?
Yeah, I'm not even sure in elevator speech because it's not necessarily salesy.
Hmm.
So
Well,
like
is an elevator speech salesy? I thought it was if you're on an elevator and it's going down 25 floors and somebody says, "What do you do for a living?" And you have 25 floors to explain what you do for a living.
I thought that was a sales pitch.
I suppose it is.
Uh, so yeah. So anyway, go check out our bios and see if we're full of it and whether we've actually done what we're preaching.
Or selling.
Yeah, and to be mindful that there are regulations about having your DRE number, your broker's name, and DRE number on all those platforms. And
Yep.
it's go check out the rules. I'm not going to repeat them right now because I might not get it right off the top of my head. Plus, they change all the time. But you do need to identify any first point of contact, whether it's a real estate sign, a business card, your socials. People have to be able to have your name and your license number and your broker so they can do research on you if they want.
Yep. All
Uh,
right. What
o-
else?
okay, so we talked about some basic building blocks of assets of website, name, headshot, logo, website. A very specific place where you can use all this information. Obviously, we talked about business cards, but is in an email signature block.
Yeah.
Um, And there's two different ways that you should be communicating your information in an email signature. And you need to make sure you've got that updated both on your phone and your web browser or on your iPad, whatever the device is. Oftentimes the setting is different, even if it's the same email account. What do you think about images? What kind of images do you think people should be using as part of their signature block?
Well, we use our headshots. We have a shared signature block. I'm on the left-hand side on mine. You're on the right-hand side on yours. You're on the left-hand side, right below your regular signature. I'm on the right-hand side. I don't know what else you would put besides headshots.
So we combine our signature image into
Mhm.
one image that has both our headshots and our logo and
Mhm.
our brokerage and all our contact info represented in that image.
Yeah.
And it looks nice. We look pretty. And so we have to update that at least every time we update our headshots, which is every time we renew our license, but we often update it every year and it reflects the awards that we have. So we're been President's Club Elite the last several years. So we just, brag about, aren't we amazing? Um,
But we also have a clickable signature block above that.
right.
It's both of our pet peeves that you can't if you can't click on a phone number.
Particularly the
Get
phone number.
email.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't matter for email because you've already gotten the email. You don't need that. But you've got to be able to click on that phone number. And I
So
think that's a big mistake when people don't do that.
So in the text above that image, we'll have our name, our title, broker associate, and then the phone number, which is clickable. What other information do you think agents should consider putting in that signature block?
Well, I have a link to our website. I have a link to our testimonials, and I have a link to our podcast.
Yes, yeah, I have all those things. And you want to make those clickable so that if somebody is get something from you and they're curious about you, they're
Mhm.
one click away from getting that information to learn
Mhm.
more about you.
Yeah.
The website to read your bio, the reviews to read what other people are saying about you,
Yeah.
um, our podcast for obvious reasons because we want you
Yeah.
to listen to this.
And they
Uh,
get to know us by listening
and,
to this as well.
and get to know us, yeah, and hopefully some free information about how to do real estate.
Right.
Because that when you give away the free information, people have an internal sense of obligation to you as appreciation for that free information. And they're more likely to use you as an agent. So all right. So digital curb appeal. You got to make yourself look good with a headshot, picking a vanity email address that is portable that you could go with you forever, but then all advertises that you're in real estate. A
Yep.
logo, which may or may not be necessary. I'm not sure we finished the full logo conversation, other than making it readable. It should have something in it that indicates uh, real estate. And we talked about the problems of a too much of a script that's unreadable, but making sure your name is readable, not just TF or whatever initials you might have, because
Yeah.
there could be lots of agents with the initials TF or whatever your
Yeah.
initials are.
Yep.
At least get your first name if that's unique, or your last name if that's unique. You don't have to have everything, but grabbing that. And one of the people we were working with had a very subtle real estate. It was her name, a little bit of script, but big enough that you could read it. And then she had keychains hanging off of the serif. And it was,
It's a great logo.
yeah, it definitely balanced that kind of cutesy feel with adding the real estate. So
Yeah.
the logo, um, I think of all these things, the logo's the least important, but it definitely is usable. Having readable signs, whether it's the sign in front of the house or the A-frames,
Yeah.
all your socials, having bios, all those places, having names, your username be identifiable in real estate.
Yeah.
How do you feel about professional headshots on social medias? We kind of skipped over that. It's okay to have more casual stuff, right?
Yeah, of
Appropriate for that.
course.
I
Of
mean,
course.
LinkedIn's the exception. That's the one that you should look
Yep.
businessy. Okay, so true
Easy for you to
confession.
say.
Yeah, true confession. When I was first playing around with AI, um, in fact, you'll see it in the opening for this podcast. I asked AI to make Muppets out of Sherry and I, and so occasionally the Muppet duo of the two of us with the real story in the background shows up on our as our profile photo on our business Facebook page. Um, it's goofy, it's fun, it's relatable, hopefully.
Yeah, I think it's important. I mean, we want people to know us as realtors, as professionals, but we also want to be real
Yeah,
and relatable, as you just said. So.
yeah. All right. Any other closing thoughts before we sign off for this week?
Well, you started out the podcast by saying set it and forget it, but really, this is something you should do on an annual basis. Just like in December, when we go through our database and clean it up for the following year, we also go in and we look at our um, digital curb appeal and maybe revise bios, change photos, add logos, add designations or things that we might have earned during the year. Just make sure that it's in good shape, that it doesn't look old or dated, and that you're ready for January 1 when you start over every year.
Yeah. When you do your business planning in the fall, that's a good time to start thinking about it. So all those images are ready to go.
Yep.
If you're starting any new campaigns in the new year, it's good to have all those images and footprints be consistent from the beginning of whatever that new campaign is. Great, great
Yep.
call, Sherry.
Thank you.
All right. Um, I used John Wooden 2 weeks ago, and I had another one, but I'm going to stick with John Wooden
All right.
because this takes effort to be in real estate. And as an entrepreneur, um, especially when you're starting, you might need to put in 40, 50, 60 hours a week. I think a lot of agents sometimes think that I only need to put 20 in. And the truth is, once your business is going, you might get away with that. But to get started, like any startup business, you're putting in entrepreneur hours. And so John Wooden's quote is, if you don't work, nothing will. All right.
Love that.
We'll see you next time. Bye now.
Bye.